whether it's India or the United States of America or European countries, are they on the same page, or can Pakistan follow that Chinese template and say something to A, B, C and D and continue to get away with terror?
Yeah, this is called triangulation in politics. But I don't think Pakistan can really find a way out of its own corner that it's dug itself in. It's now so dependent on China and to a lesser extent on Qatar and Turkey, and that's about it. And it doesn't really have much international support. And like you're mentioning, Gaurav, the kind of snub that Imran Khan got from Joe Biden, it clearly shows that, there's nothing that the US really expects from Pakistan in a positive sense. I mean, and that's how the world has come to see Pakistan now. There's nothing positive coming from them.
Okay.
So at least they should not do bad things.
Before I bring in Ambassador Vishnu Prakash on red lines, Lisa Curtis, does the US have defined red lines that this is what they expect of the Afghanistan government, if money is to be paid or if resources have to be pumped in to restore democracy in whatever form in Afghanistan, even if you may call that democracy under Taliban rule? For example, take action against the Haqqani network. He's the interior minister. Or bring in Mullah Baradar as the prime minister. He's currently deputy prime minister. Or bring in Stanikzai. Or no such defined red lines, ma'am?
Well, I think that this is being worked out now behind the scenes. I don't see any particularly firm red lines at the moment. But as I said, I think that's really important because I think, unfortunately, the way the U.S. negotiated the Doha agreement, very weak agreement, in a sense, it emboldened the Taliban. So, we're in this position where the Taliban has felt emboldened by the way the U.S. negotiator has treated them over the last 3 years with real kid gloves. So I think that we need to demonstrate that it won't be acceptable to have terrorist leaders as part of the government. It won't be acceptable to not allow girls to go to school, women to work, that there will have to be a level of respect for human rights if the Taliban has any hope of being recognized by the rest of the international community. But no, to answer your question, I don't think those red lines have been set yet. And that's why I think it's so important when leaders like Prime Minister Modi do set down some of those red lines. So perhaps they can have some influence on this entire process.
But shouldn't the American establishment also be more keen to find out, more forthcoming, Raymond Vickery? And is that actually happening? Because especially in the Biden administration?
Well, I think it's absolutely fundamental that China open up and be more transparent. And it's not just a question of assigning blame. That's not the real point. The real point is you got to look at what happened so you can prevent it from happening again and see what the most effective way is to counteract it. And it is really very dissettling when a country like Australia has the nerve to speak up about the need for that China then threatens them economically and so forth. I don't think there's any question what the United States wants to get to the bottom of the origin in China of this pandemic. But it is also the case that in the Biden administration, we're willing to work with partners, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, in order to be able to be more effective in trying to bring transparency to China. But the United States already has asked for a intelligence report on this. It was inconclusive, but that by no means means that the issue has been dropped. And I think it's fair to say that the U.S., along with its international partners, including India, Australia, and Japan, will continue to press on this issue.
So does this now become more a Quad issue? And Aviruk, is this likely, in your view, rile China even more? China's anyway riled about the Quad summit, but the fact that now we're saying that UN reforms are required, origins of COVID need to be known, and issues like this?
No, I'm sure. None of this is not done by, these are all things done by design. I don't think the Prime Minister just got up there and rattled off, this origins issue. It would have been thought through and done deliberately. And I mean, it's absolutely right as well, because we do need to know whether it was, bats in a market or whether it was a lab. Everyone, deserves to know that. However, what's happened, especially what happened in the last 18 months or so, what has happened, and I would say specifically in the States, is that the issue of origin, which is a fair enough question, that got conflated with things like anti-mask and anti-vax, and then it just went on tangents such as critical race theory as well. So you have school boards being surrounded by protesters who are anti-vax, anti-mask, and don't want critical race theory taught, and they want to know the origins. So what happens with this kind of a situation is that if you conflate so many issues, and there are loud people doing this on social media, then the others kind of take a step back for a bit. But I'm glad that a logical, reasonable discussion is opening up again.
Sreeram Chaulia, do you see this logical discussion be taken to a logical conclusion? It's been raised, as Aviruk has rightly pointed out in the past, but never taken to a logical conclusion. China succeeds in browbeating even powerful countries.
Yeah, I think the US intelligence inquiry that Biden had ordered has not come up with anything conclusive, and that's a dampener, because they had sophisticated means of eavesdropping and also agents inside China on the ground. If any country can penetrate the US with all, tech int and human int, it's actually the US. So one would have hoped that they would have come up with something definitive, which they can, nail them at least from the US point of view. And of course, there will be many other democracies willing to go along with it. And that will, of course, play into the new Cold War trope, but that's okay. The point is, China needs to be accountable, at least morally, if not financially, for the devastation that it has.
China needs to be held accountable. China. You're absolutely right. Quads coming together, Quad summit.
China.
Yes.
About China.
Yes.
The Prime Minister made a very important point today in the UNGA speech. He spoke about saving the oceans from expansion and exclusion.
Yes.
So coming back to this region, Indo-Pacific, the point is it's not only COVID, right? I mean, it's for us, it's an existential threat. And it is, getting bigger and bigger. The shadow is lengthening of Chinese hegemony.
Okay, so it now remains to be seen. Quads come out with a joint statement. What is the joint action that will happen in the weeks and months ahead? We'll be tracking that story very closely. To all my guests, many thanks for joining me. Mr. Vickery, Lisa Curtis, Sreeram Chaulia.